I have the suspicion that in the modern day, the average person just really, really does not like sitting in their own thoughts, or at least they don't like being alone with themselves, and they don't like thinking beyond the surface level of any thoughts that we might have. We don't like sitting alone, we don't like thinking about what's on our mind and thinking about why this could be the case and why this couldn't be the case. And I think to some extent it's driven by maybe the possibility that we don't want to confront uncomfortable patterns of thinking, in the idea that maybe we think about past mistakes that we made or past wrongs that we did, and we don't really want to enter that train of thought because maybe it hurts us. But also, I'm just a bit more suspicious that it's a two-way problem. The first way might be that we're just not comfortable with the discomfort. Funny enough, make of that what you will. But we're not comfortable with the idea of just sitting down and dealing with these complex and complicated thoughts by ourselves. And also, I think it's too easy for us to get distracted throughout a day, and it's very hard for us to find moments where we can just sit with ourselves and think about who we are and think about what's on our mind properly, because there's always something to do. If you wake up in the morning, you might have your phone next to you on the bed, so the first thing you do is you pick it up, especially if it does have an alarm and you need it to wake up. You pick up your phone, maybe you look on social media, the first thing that you do, and already you don't get the chance to think about what's going on in the morning. You think about what's happening on the world outside of you, outside on social media. And even throughout the day, it's become easier than ever to distract ourselves from what's going on in our heads and what's going on with the world around us, because you have things like YouTube Shorts, you have things like TikTok and all of that. And I think even when you take the phone away from the equation, you even have stuff like just general things to do. Maybe you have chores of washing the dishes, maybe you're just busy brushing your teeth, maybe you have to make yourself breakfast, and there's always something keeping you preoccupied. But I think for the sake of argument, even those things are a lot better than just having to just have your face and your eyes just glued to a screen, just scrolling over and watching YouTube Shorts without remembering what the last one said. And something that really prompted me to bring up this video topic for today was that I was thinking about my recent behaviors and my recent trends and my recent habits as a person. And the one question I asked myself, or the one thing that I realized, was the last time I ever had an interesting morning was the time when I stopped playing music on my phone while I was in the shower. And the reason for that was because whenever I would go into the shower and I wouldn't play music, I was forced not to because I didn't want to be a public nuisance in the place that I live. You don't really want to blast music in the shower because there's a slight chance that other people are going to hear you. So I didn't want to deal with that. So I usually just showered in silence. And I realized that these showers particularly were becoming a bit more enjoyable because I was able to just think about the most random of things. Sometimes I don't even think about serious things. I would, for example, before I went to shower, I would have gone and watched a few episodes of Vinland Saga. So now for the rest of my shower, I'm just thinking about the episodes of Vinland Saga, what happened, and the themes that were being portrayed and how I understand the themes. And those are some thoughts that you could consider to be interesting, and they're not those kinds of thoughts that are very complicated or very deep or that could lead to pathways that might attack insecurities. And then this made me think about another thing that had happened, which also just made me more thoughtful when I was moving around campus. Something that happened was the day before I wrote an economics exam, I broke my headphones, and those things were really expensive, and I didn't want to buy a new set of headphones. I was tempted to. I really was. 25% of my brain was pushing me to go on break, buy a new set of headphones from another store. I was even trying to make a plan to say I won't buy them from the same store so that they don't look at me and think about why is he buying another set of headphones. They don't look at me weird. But at the end of the day, I decided not to pull through because I was like, whoa, I already bought one pair this year, and that was a lot of money. I can't spend that money again. So then I decided with myself to be like, you know what? I'll just move around campus and I'll just move around without any music in my ears. And if I'm bored, I'll just think about whatever's on the mind or whatever is most likely to be thought about. So whenever I'd walk from class to class, I start to think again. And again, it's not always me having some really deep and thoughtful conversations with myself, but it's just about thinking about the most random of things in a deeper sense. Like I said, I would think about Vinland Saga, maybe I would think about what I learned in class today. And I found that when I was thinking about the things that I was learning in class and I was thinking about my homework, that was also improving my performance and my ability to remember the things that I had been studying. So if you need another reason to sort of try out this idea of being more thoughtful more often, I think that's also a really good point to give, to be like, hey, you should try being a bit more thoughtful. But I think the biggest thing about us being a lot more thoughtful, and the main takeaway that I want to present in this video, is that it just makes life more interesting in a way that you wouldn't expect. I think since we are in the social media landscape, and especially if you watch YouTube videos centered around gaming and anything that the idea and premise of just watching it without any editing would be boring, therefore there has to be some very interesting editing, music, lots of jump cuts and things like that. Basically, there always has to be something that stimulates you every 5 seconds. We live in that age of social media, and I think because we live in that age of social media, we kind of condition ourselves to make our lives also behave in that manner. There's always something to do, there's always something to watch, there always needs to be some form of stimulation, but we never really stop, sit down, sit in silence, and just think about who we are and think about what's on our mind and process the things that we've gone through over the past few days, maybe the past few weeks or months. And I think we're really missing out, like I said, on having some pretty interesting days because of that. Maybe it's just unique to me, and if it is a bit of an issue, maybe I should check it out as well. But I find that a lot of my more interesting conversations can be had with myself, because I'll spend maybe 5 minutes on the walk while paying attention still, obviously, but I'll be spending about 5 minutes on the walk just tackling this one idea, just wrestling whether it can go this way or that way. I remember arguing over what Thorfinn meant in Vinland Saga, what he meant by the idea that I have no enemies. I was trying to figure out, what did Thorfinn actually mean by that? Like, we can have a surface level understanding of it, but if there's a deeper meaning, what is that deeper meaning? And that's one of my fondest memories, because I felt like I was using my brain. But the main point of the video and the main point of the title is just this idea that I think that we should really bring to light, the fact that we just don't like sitting and thinking. And I think this even moves into when we go into the later stage of the day. How many of us eat our food while watching a YouTube video? And I'm not saying there's something wrong with that. I think it's one of those things where on its own, there isn't really anything inherently wrong with it, but if it adds up and it piles on top of other factors, then I think it starts to become a good point to think and wonder, what am I actually doing here? And even before we go to bed, for example, how many of us doom scroll before we go to bed? How many of us just try to watch TikToks until we want to fall asleep and end up falling asleep at around 2 a.m.? I can't speak for myself in the sense that I do that, but I do know that's something that happens to a lot of people. For me though, I will be honest, what I do is I just put a random YouTube video that's very slow paced so that I can fall asleep to it. I don't know why, I just can't fall asleep to silence. And now that I've said that out loud, that might be something I can add to the video, to be like, it could be another example where there's just this heavy friction with us not wanting to sit and think about what's going on in our head. There's a lot of friction, there's this lack of motivation to just sit and think about things unprompted. How many of us are going to do a lot of the things that we do, especially when it comes to thinking, if we don't have to do it? Would we think about mathematics, for example, if we did not have a mathematics exam? Would we think about where we're going in life if we didn't have the pressure to actually go somewhere? So I think I'm going to just drill on and drill on and drill on, but I just want to keep the video as short as I can. I want to end it here so I can upload it today. But I think that's some food for thought. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it, and I hope you did find some value. If you did, please do leave a like, and if you want to tune in for another one of these episodes, please do subscribe as well. And if you did make it this far as well, I consider you someone quite special, in the sense that you endured through a YouTube video of someone who might not be that good at talking and who has a really, really small channel. And I want us to basically confuse the comment section. If you made it this far, please type in the comments the phrase, mindfulness is super boring. And whoever is most creative with putting that phrase in the comments, they will receive a heart from me, and they will get shouted out at the end of the next video. I'll find a way to do that. But that's it from me for now. If you do want to watch another video, I'm gonna suggest one using the YouTube magic. But until then, I hope to see you for my next video, which at the time of recording, which is a Friday, that next video is gonna come out next week Monday, unless I get 15 likes, and if that's the case, I'll release a new video on Sunday. But until then, I'll see you guys.